On the bridge of the Bismarck, Lindemann and Lutyens were looking at the thick black ball of smoke lying on the surface of the sea. "We can't risk going into that," said Lutyens. "Resume our former course, if you please, Captain." "Aye, aye, sir." He gave the order. "Now, make our last signal to Eugen," said Lutyens. "Goodbye and good luck." Far off on the horizon, almost invisible in the mist, a searchlight winked at them. The signal rating on the wing of the bridge read it off as the message came in. "Thank you. Goodbye. Best of." Signal obscured in mist. "Thank you. We can guess the end," said Lutyens, and then turning to Lindemann, "I wonder if we can. At any rate, Eugen's got away unseen, sir. She'll have a clear run for home." The Chief of Staff approached with a signal form in his hand and saluted. "Signal just come through from Berlin, sir. Our agent in Algeciras reports that Britain's Force H carrier Ark Royal, battle cruiser Renown, cruiser Sheffield, and 6 destroyers left Gibraltar at midnight, heading west out of the Mediterranean." They went into the chart room, where a navigating officer was plotting hypothetical courses. "Assuming we make our curve for Brest at midnight, that's our course, sir," he said. "Here's the best possible course for Force H. What, do they intercept us?" "Hardly, sir. There'll be U-boats looking out for Force H. What's the weather report for that area?" "Wind force 6 south to southwest, sir," said the Chief of Staff, running through a pad of messages. "Visibility poor, cloud ceiling 500 feet, heavy sea." "I think we can discount Force H then," said Lutyens. "That sea will slow down her screen, and she won't be able to get her planes into the air in any case." "Ark Royal's a very experienced ship, sir," said Lindemann. "She can't read our minds, though," said Lutyens, "Ark Royal or no Ark Royal." "The British have done pretty well along that line so far," said Lindemann. "How do you mean?" "I'm referring to what happened today, sir, and all that it implies." "Please be more explicit." "We left Norway in thick weather, sir. We took the best course for Denmark Strait at our best speed. That was only one out of a dozen possible things we could have done. The British could only intercept us here, sir, by moving instantly, without wasting a moment." "And they did, sir. At dawn this morning, there were 2 ships cutting us off. You must agree, sir, that was remarkably intelligent anticipation." "You forget, Captain, that it was just as likely to be remarkably good luck. In war, Captain, there's always the danger of attributing to the enemy uncanny powers and overwhelming strength until you meet him. As a result of their luck or their judgment, the British have suffered a stunning defeat. Let's hope the Ark Royal has the same sort of luck." The Bismarck was heaving and plunging over a rough sea. Admiral Lutyens came out of his day cabin and walked to the bridge. He had 3 or 4 small leather cases in his hand. "I wish to address the ship's company, Captain, and please parade the supernumerary officers." At a sign from Lindemann, a petty officer switched on the public address system and called the crew's attention to the fact that the Admiral was going to speak. The supernumerary officers were already parading on the afterdeck. Now they looked weary and battered, not having been to bed for several nights. "Men of the Bismarck, I cannot call you from your duties while a vigilant enemy lurks over the horizon. But while you are at your stations, tending your engines and manning your guns, you can hear what I have to say, while our young officers can witness the ceremony. Men of the Bismarck, first, I have to tell you of the great honor done to us. Our Führer has sent me a personal message to convey to you, to Captain Lindemann, and to every single man of the ship's company. Our Führer himself sends his congratulations to us all. He says, these are his very words, "The news of our great victory will rock every capital in the world. The warmonger Churchill totters on his throne. He bids us go on and on and on, from victory to victory, until Jewry is utterly overthrown and the world can know peace again under a swastika band of National Socialism." The ship's political officer had been waiting his cue and stepped forward in front of the supernumerary officers with a gesture. "Heil Hitler," they piped obediently. "Sieg Heil, Sieg Heil." It was not a very impressive exhibition. The boys were weary and perhaps half-hearted. The Führer's message went on to command me in his name, in the name of the Führer, to make awards to officers and men in the ship who have distinguished themselves. Lieutenant Commander Dolman. He came sheepishly forward. In the name of the Führer, I present you the Assistant Gunnery Officer of the Bismarck with the Knight's Cross of the Iron Cross. At a further gesture from the political officer, the young officers cheered as Lütjens put the cross on Dolman. Commander Schwartz, as the gunnery officer of this ship, you have played a principal part in the destruction of the Hood. In the name of the Führer, I present you with the Knight's Cross with swords. Again, the young officers cheered. Your captain already proudly wears the Knight's Cross. Now, Captain Lindemann, it is my honor and pleasure to present you with the Knight's Cross with swords and diamonds. Lindemann was about to come forward to receive it when the general alarm blared through the ship. Air warning, enemy planes in sight. Planes on the port quarter. The ack guns were already training round. They had begun their fire before Lütjens and Lindemann had reached their posts on the bridge again. Here came 9 swordfish, coming in intolerably slowly, wheeling to get on the Bismarck's bow and to drop their torpedoes from a good position. Hard a starboard, roared Lindemann. The sky was pockmarked with the black puffs of smoke from the ack shells. The Bismarck's glittering wake nearly completed a circle as she turned, heeling violently. Hard a port, roared Lindemann, and the ship leaned over the other way as the helm was put over. Torpedoes streaked close by her sides, their wakes visible in the grey water. There was a roar and a fountain of water as one torpedo exploded against her starboard bow. Then the attack was over, as quickly as it was begun. Those were swordfish, said Lütjens to his chief of staff. How many did you count? I thought I saw 9, sir. I thought there were 9 as well. Swordfish means a carrier's within range, sir, said the chief of staff. Not a very well-equipped carrier if all they can send into the attack is 9 swordfish, said Lütjens. They scored a hit all the same. What's the damage, Captain? Reports just coming through, sir. Lindemann was listening on the telephone and nodding as he answered. Very well. Damage control reports the injury done to the ship is negligible, sir. The pumps are already gaining on the water as it comes in. They'll have the hull patched in less than an hour. The ship's fighting ability is not impaired in the slightest, sir. Bismarck hardly has to give a thought to the little torpedoes a swordfish can carry, said Lütjens. Now, let's see where they've come from. He led the way into the chart room and bent over the chart. What's the extreme range of a swordfish? 120 miles? Less than 150, anyway. At a sign from Lütjens, the navigating officer swept the compass round in a circle. Somewhere inside there, said Lütjens. A large area, gentlemen. A young wireless officer made his appearance at the chart room. Excuse me, sir. We are taking in the wireless signals from the swordfish. Yes? By direction finding, their course is a little north of east 85%, sir. Very approximate. A glance at the navigating officer caused him to draw a line on that bearing from the ship's position to the circumference of the circle. A carrier? There, said Lütjens. And, our royals 1,000 miles away, said the chief of staff with a gesture at the other edge of the chart. A carrier with 9 little swordfish and no more, said Lütjens. Well, when's sunset? 17 minutes from now, sir, said the navigating officer. An hour for the planes to refuel and rearm, an hour to return here. No moon and low cloud. They won't find us again tonight, sir, said the chief of staff. Nor tomorrow, if we throw off that cruiser, said Lütjens. As we will. He went to clap one fist into the other and discovered that he was still holding the leather case of the Iron Cross, which he had intended to present to Lindemann. I'm forgetting one of my duties, Captain. In the Führer's name, I make this presentation to you. Thank you, Admiral, said Lindemann. Long may you wear this badge of such a great distinction. I hope I do, sir, said Lindemann, looking down at the glittering thing. We're entering into fog again, sir, said the chief of staff. Now's our time. In the war room, the admiral and the rear admiral and the air vice marshal, with others, were looking at the chart whereon were indicated the ships involved in the pursuit of the Bismarck. "They're closing in on her, all right," said the Air Vice Marshal. "Yes, looks like it," said the Admiral. "Position, course, and speed from Suffolk, sir," said the young officer. "Bismarck's holding her course as before." "I wonder what she has in mind," said the Admiral, almost to himself. "Tovey's home fleet will be up to her by tomorrow noon." "The Bismarck doesn't know the home fleet's at sea, sir," said the Rear Admiral. "Most immediate message from Suffolk, sir," said the young officer loudly. "Have sighted 9 swordfish proceeding toward Bismarck." "9 swordfish," said the Admiral. "They're from Victorious. Why are there only 9 of them?" "Victorious is like the Prince of Wales," said the Rear Admiral. "She's brand new from the builder's hands. The swordfish pirates have never risen from a carrier's deck before and never landed on one either. They're raw. But that was all we had when Bismarck came out." Suffolk reporting. "Having intercepted signal from aircraft to Victorious, 1 hit observed." "Please God, that'll stir her up," said the Rear Admiral. "That's what Tovey sent his planes to do." "My guess is she could take half a dozen or more without too much damage," said the Admiral. "Suffolk reporting position, course and speed," said the young officer. "Course 190 degrees, speed 25 knots. No change in either." "Doesn't look as if that hit's had any effect," said the Admiral. "It's just sunset over there," said the Rear Admiral. "Dark before long, foggy too. And the wind's freshening all the time. Those swordfish pilots would be flying on for the first time in their lives with a huge sea running, in the dark and in the fog." "Please God they make it," said the Admiral. "Suffolk reporting," said the young officer. "Have lost contact with Bismarck. Am making search." "Lost her?" said the Admiral. "Darkness and fog," said the Rear Admiral. "I can't believe she'll find her again." All over the world, the question was being asked, where is the Bismarck? In 1,000 newspapers in 100 languages, that question appeared as a front-page headline. And the Bismarck was actually laboring at her best speed across the stormy Atlantic towards Saint-Nazaire. There was half a gale still blowing, as ever, and the sea was wild. This was her 4th successive day at sea without any relaxation for her crew, save what small comfort they could derive from lying on the steel decks close to their action stations. Beards were sprouting everywhere, even on the cheeks of the young supernumerary officers. Lutjens was in his armchair, overcome by the need for sleep, when his chief of staff entered. "News about Scapa Flow at last, sir," he said. "The Luftwaffe were able to reconnoiter this morning." "And what did they see?" "Nothing, sir. Not a battleship or a carrier or a cruiser there. The British home fleet's at sea, sir. And it may have been at sea for a long time. For it was 3 days ago that the last reconnaissance of Scapa Flow was made." "I think we could know the British were at sea by now without the Luftwaffe to tell us," said Lutjens. "Yes, sir. Oh, I suppose we'd better look at the chart again." Lindemann joined them as they bent over it. "In 3 days, the home fleet could have reached pretty nearly anywhere in the eastern Atlantic," said Lutjens. "Oh, yes, sir," said the Chief of Staff, a little condescendingly, "at 20 knots. He made a wide sweep of the compasses over the chart. They could be anywhere inside there, sir." "Yes," said Lutjens, tapping the chart at the cross which marked Bismarck's position. "It lay comfortably within that circle. If they're anywhere to the northward of this, we can agree we've slipped past them already." Now, for one whole endless grey day, ships were plunging across the wide Atlantic. King George V and the Rodney, Force H, and Vian's destroyers. And planes flew perilously below the clouds to comb the surface, all searching for the Bismarck, and Bismarck remained lost. The neutral press, the American papers, all speculated about it. Has Bismarck escaped, they asked. Even in the English papers, there were headlines like, "Questions to be asked in the House." People in factory canteens were saying over cups of coffee, "It'd be too bad if they lose her." Ark Royal was enduring appalling weather. She was plunging over the waves so that when she turned into the wind, her bows and her stern were rising and falling 50 feet at a single plunge. It was raining and bitterly cold as the swordfish were arranged on the flying deck, It was only with the utmost difficulty that the planes were able to take to the air, to fly off on their search. They vanished instantly into the greyness. And elsewhere, Catalinas had taken off from Loch Erne in Ireland to search in a southwesterly direction, flying through the night so as to be over their search area by daylight. Southwesterly they flew, on parallel courses far out of sight of each other, turning as they reached the limits set for the search, flying 50 miles northwest and then turning northeasterly to fly back, covering a wide area of the ocean with their tracks as with a gridiron which was being drawn upon the chart in the war room, a fresh bar being added, a new line being drawn as each turn was reported by wireless. The area on the chart uncovered by air or sea search was steadily dwindling. One of the Catalinas nearly at the limit of its endurance when the crew saw something below. "What's that?" demanded someone. The weather was so thick that they were flying only 500 feet above the tossing water. Yet even so, the vessel they saw was vague, undefined. They were almost above it. "Get closer. Get round its stern," said the man in the second pilot's seat. "That's a battleship and no destroyer screen. That's the Bismarck." The observer grabbed a form and began to write out a signal. Even as he did so, the Catalina jolted and jerked as a shell burst close alongside. As he went on writing, the pilot turned the plane frantically. The sea and the ship below wheeled in a circle as she came round, with shell bursts all round her, and climbed for cloud cover. As the mist closed round her, the wireless operator began to tap out his message. Admiral Lutyens was asleep in his armchair, his head on his hand, when the alarm blared out through the ship. He woke with a start, blinked himself alert, and rushed for the bridge. All over the ship, the alarm woke sleeping figures. Exhausted men lying uncomfortably on the decks or sitting against bulkheads, sleeping uneasily while the rest strove to keep themselves awake at their posts, dirty and bearded and untidy, sometimes even nodding off, until the alarm blared. "Plane on the port bow! Plane on the port bow!" The ack guns wheeled about, pointed for a moment, and then burst into rolling thunder as the shells were hurled at the Catalina. Lutyens and Lindemann met on the bridge. "Well, Captain, they found us at last." "Yes, sir." "That was a Catalina, a shore-based plane. Probably from Ireland." "Yes." They entered the chart room. "How far from France can we expect air cover from the Luftwaffe?" demanded Lutyens. The navigator drew a circle on the chart and shaded it in the area between it and the French shore. "That's the approximate line, sir." He swung the dividers between the marked position of the Bismarck and the edge of the circle. "And we shall reach there dawn tomorrow, sir." Lutyens and Lindemann eyed each other. "Dawn tomorrow," said Lindemann, looking at the clock. 10 more hours of daylight today, and then we'll have air cover," said Lutyens. "Then nobody will dare touch us." The wireless officer appeared and saluted. "We're taking in the British plane signals, sir," he said. "Can you read them?" "Not in that code, sir, but the form's clear enough. Our position, course, and speed." "I didn't think it would be Christmas greetings," said Lutyens. "And we had picked up 2 other brief signals, sir." "Well?" "I could not read them either, sir, but I could recognize who were transmitting." "Swordfish, sir." "Then there's a carrier somewhere near." "Yes, sir." "Thank you, Lieutenant," said Lutyens. The wireless officer withdrew, and they bent over the chart. "A carrier means Force H from Gibraltar," said Lutyens. "What's their possible position?" "You know when they sailed." The navigator swept another circle, centering on Gibraltar. It passed very close to Bismarck's present position. "They can be in touch with us at any moment, sir." Chief of Staff flipped open a reference book of profiles. "Force H," he said, showing one. "Renown, 5 minutes' work for our guns," said Lutyens. "Sheffield, she wouldn't risk a single salvo from us. Ark Royal, it must be her swordfish that we can hear. We've beaten off one attack by swordfish already. There's nothing to frighten us in the prospect of another, except that nobody in this ship has been to bed for 6 days and 6 nights, sir," said Lindemann. "Only one more night now, Lindemann. Only one more night." They went out onto the bridge again and looked over the heaving sea. "A rough sea, no cloud, visibility as bad as possible. Not the conditions for an aircraft carrier," said Lutyens. In the operations room in Ark Royal, everything was pitching and swaying as the pilots were being finally briefed. "There it is, gentlemen," said the senior observer. "You have Bismarck's position, course, and speed. The rest of it is up to you. Your torpedoes have the new magnetic pistols on them, which may help. Unless you stop her, unless you slow her up, she's safe. Tomorrow morning, she'll be under air cover from the Luftwaffe. We have 9 hours of daylight left. The home fleet's 100 miles astern of her and can never catch her in time, unless you slow her up. You know where your duty lies. Good luck." In the war room at the Admiralty, a rather depressed group of officers was standing watching the chart being brought up to date. Someone marked Bismarck's place, almost in the center of the triangle, whose angles were the King George V, Rodney, and Ark Royal. "It must be the Bismarck. Can't be anything else," said the Rear Admiral. "She's been heading for France ever since we lost her." "What are those distances?" snapped the Admiral. 140 miles for King George V, 130 for Rodney, sir. They can't catch her. No chance at all. Unless Ark Royal slows her up, sir." "Yes, I know. That's the chance, for what it's worth. And there's Vian's 5 destroyers. They can intercept after nightfall." He looked at the clock. 10 hours of daylight. 9.5. "Plenty of time for an attack by Ark Royal's swordfish," said the Rear Admiral. "The wind is due west. She'll have to turn out of her course to fly off and fly on. Yes, she'll have time for 1 daylight attack. She'll be lucky if she has time for 2 before dark. And after dark, not so good, I'm afraid." Just then, a captain of engineering came up with a paper in his hand. "Here are the fuel consumption figures for King George V and Rodney, sir. As close as I can calculate them. They're not too good, sir." Fuel. Down in the depths of King George V, Lieutenant Commander Engineering, with a petty officer and a stoker, were sounding the fuel tanks, going from one to another, hauling out the dipstick, wiping it, dropping it in again, and then hauling it out for inspection. At each site, the Lieutenant Commander Engineering made a non-committal noise and noted the figure on a piece of paper. On every dipstick, there was only a very little oil apparent at the very end. "That one's dry, sir," said the petty officer at one inspection. "Very well," said the Lieutenant Commander, and went into the engine room, where the bright lights shone and the engines sang their song, and the Commander E stood watching in his boiler suit. The Lieutenant Commander shook his head as he came up. "Not a hope, sir," he said. "Here are the figures." The Commander took the list and nodded agreement as he looked at the total. "You know, Bismarck's been found," he said. "Where is she, sir?" "She's 140 miles right ahead of us, going straight for France." "That's bad, isn't it, sir? At top speed, we couldn't catch her, and she'll reach Brest this time tomorrow." "I'm sorry, sir." "And by daylight, she'll be within range of air cover. The whole Luftwaffe will be over her." "Yes, I suppose so." "Oh, what's the use of talking about it anyway?" said the Commander Engineering in sudden fury. "We can't steam all out for 4 hours, let alone 24. At economical speed, we can just get home, even if we can do that. Our destroyers have gone home for lack of oil. Our cruisers have gone home for lack of oil. And now, oh, damn." On the bridge of the Bismarck, Lutjens and Lindemann stood watching the ship plunge and toss in the appalling weather. "You must remember the enemy has his troubles too, Captain," said Lutjens. "He must be boiling with rage at this very moment, now that he knows that we are here, now that we've broken through his ring with a clear run for home." "A clear run except for those swordfish, sir," Lindemann reminded him. "Planes are shadowing us all the time." Round the ship could be seen men carrying food to the men at their posts. They had to shake those men, who were being allowed to sleep, so as to rouse them to take their food, and even then it was received without appetite and allowed to lie neglected while the ship heaved and tossed over the strong sea. The signal officer approached. "I've just picked up a curious signal, sir." "What?" "From a British ship, and I think from the carrier Ark Royal, sir." "Well?" "It was not in code. It is being sent very urgently in plain English." "Well, what was it, man?" "It said, 'Look out for Sheffield.'" Look out for Sheffield. Over and over and over again, sir. Sheffield. Now, that's the cruiser with Force H, sir, from the Mediterranean. What was I just saying to you, Captain? Said Lutyens. The English are having their troubles, too. If that message, whatever it means, was urgent enough to be sent in plain English, it shows they're having trouble. And I don't think we're sorry, are we? In Force H, a senior observer of the Ark Royal was briefing the pilots. Bismarck's now 24 miles from us, bearing 183 degrees. You can't miss her. You can't mistake her. She's all by herself. Don't give her a moment's warning. But I don't have to give you that sort of instruction. We'll be turning into the wind for you to take off in 5 minutes' time. Commander Eyre on the wing of the bridge looked in and reported ready to fly off, sir. The Ark Royal turned solemnly into the wind as the order was passed down the voice pipe from the bridge. She was held exactly in position with the indicators showing that this was so. The 15 swordfish flew off in accordance with the orders given on the flight deck. They formed up and dashed away. The signal officer came running frantically to the bridge where the captain stood with the officer of the watch. Sheffield's over there too, sir. She's in visual touch, and she turned out of line on an opposite course to us when we turned into the wind. Sheffield's there? Said the captain. Yes, sir. And the swordfish pilots have instructions to attack any ship they find alone. Send lookout for Sheffield to them. Quick. Send in plain English. Don't waste a second. Aye, aye, sir. The first swordfish was flying in cloud when the observer picked up a pip on the radar. He advised the pilot, who put down the nose of the plane and swept out into the clear, steady for the aim, dropped his torpedo, and wheeled away. The second followed him and did the same. So did the third. But the pilot of the third, to his surprise, saw the first 2 torpedoes exploding in great fountains of water after running almost no distance. The fourth plane followed him and dropped his torpedo. At that moment, the gunner in the 5th swordfish heard a signal in his earphones and scribbled a frantic message and passed it to the observer. Look out for Sheffield. The observer frantically called the pilot's attention to it at the moment when he was about to drop his torpedo. The pilot drew his hand back hastily and wheeled the swordfish round. The others followed him. The whole flight circled back to come onto Ark Royal again, back onto the heaving deck, where eager crews awaited them, to rearm them, while the air crews gathered in the briefing room. Yes, it went wrong, said the Commander Eyre. Now we've agreed about it. We have to remember this, that it can't ever happen again. But let's forget it for today. Now we try again. There's just enough time for one more daylight attack. Yes, Mr. Jones? Don't let's have any more magnetic pistols on the torpedoes, sir. They went off prematurely, the ones we dropped. I bet Sheffield's not sorry either, said another pilot. That's something gained from the mess anyway, said the Commander Eyre. We know we can't rely on magnetic exploders. My guess is it was the rough sea that set them off. I'm having contact pistols put in the torpedoes at this very moment. On the flight deck, the torpedo on its trolley was hard to manage as the ship surged over the waves, but it was placed in position under the swordfish at last, and the 15 planes were arranged ready to take off. Commander Eyre reported this on the bridge, and the ship turned into the wind again. 1 hour of daylight left, said the Commander Eyre to the captain. Those boys mean business, said the captain, and the swordfish droned on their way. There's not another ship in the world, said the Commander Eyre, that could have flown planes off and on in these conditions. In the Bismarck, Lutyens and Lindemann were looking at the grey sky. They should have attacked 2 hours ago, said Lindemann. One of the unpredictable accidents of war, I expect, said Lutyens. 1 more hour of daylight, that's all. At this moment came the yell of plane on the starboard bow, followed by the roar of the alarm. The ack-ack guns turned and began to fire, but the deafening racket was pierced by further cries. Plane on the port beam! Plane on the starboard quarter! Lindemann was giving rapid helm orders, which transmitted down the voice pipe were translated into violent action by the helmsman at the wheel. The ship turned and twisted, to leave behind her a boiling, curved wake. There was a crash and a great jet of water at the bow as one torpedo exploded there. But the ship fought on without apparent damage.